recording. Oh. You ready? All right. We're going.
Yep. Hey guys.
Numero tres. The Vinyl Fetish Club. Here we are.
That means 3.
I'm Randy. This is
Andy.
We're here in Portland in our vinyl den.
Uh-huh.
With another edition. We're talking about great music. I know, and I'd like to personally thank you before we get started for melting all the snow in Portland. This morning we got up and there was like 8 inches of snow, and for some reason it's not there to say 8 inches of something, but not snow.
Okay, cool.
All right. So this is where our little show where we talk about great records, and I turn my wife on to some music, hopefully.
You have.
So yeah, so here we go again. So a little something different this time. We're about to go to New York City. So I thought I'd ask you, what do you think when you think of the music of New York City?
The Velvet Underground.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Blondie.
Yeah.
Patti
Smith.
Who else? I think that's it.
That's pretty. I'm glad. I'm thinking that might be the influence of your husband on you. Instead of naming all these like bands from Brooklyn that are dominating the scene.
Sade.
What? She's from Ethiopia.
But she started in New York.
Okay.
So they started because it's a band.
So I wanted, since last week we did television at Great New York CBGB's band, I wanted to kind of follow that theme. But this week the album we're going to use is a soundtrack. Something a little bit different. Soundtracks aren't really a big deal anymore. Soundtracks used to be so big in the 70s and 80s. I mean, like Top Gun and Flashdance, and like there were so many like really big soundtracks. So, you ready? This is this week's selection. Is the soundtrack to Times Square. This is an album. So Times Square, first of all, when you go, we'll be in Times Square in a couple of days, and it's like Disneyland. But in the 70s and 80s, it was super seedy, super run down.
This isn't an album.
Wait. Let me do my spiel. I've been thinking about it.
Okay.
And the Times Square was like really run down and creepy.
Just show it.
And now it's just like, you know, you'll see like Elmos and you know, the first time I was in New York City in Times Square was probably about 1984, 85, and I remember walking in front of a sex store that had a fist-shaped dildo in the window. And I was on that spot recently, and I'm like, well, I know this corner, and it's now the Disney store.
Oh, that's so wrong.
So that's Times Square. So this is Times Square of old. And so there's a story behind the soundtrack, and we're going to listen to a little bit of it in a minute. And and while I'm saying this, I want you to think if you have any soundtracks in your head that you associate with like really loving when you were young. So the reason soundtracks got to be so big is because in 1977 a record label called RSO Records put out Saturday Night Fever, the album with the Bee Gees that made disco everything in the world. Well, that record label said, well, we did pretty good job with that, with the Bee Gees and Saturday Night Fever. Let's put out a couple more soundtracks that are genre oriented. So in early 1980 they put out this album, Urban Cowboy, where they tried to launch, also starring John Travolta, where they tried to launch country music to be bigger than ever, but country music was already big, so it was. I mean, it had some good songs on it. I mean, it's got Linda Ronstadt, so that's all right. But
so these are all like mixtapes.
Yeah, like mixtapes. There's your generation, right? This is like a mixtape, all different artists.
Yeah.
So this was early 1980, and then late 1980 they tried to do the same thing with punk rock. So this is the record label that put out the Bee Gees, RSO Records. Robert Stigwood was the guy who learned the business by working with Brian Epstein, the Beatles manager. But they launched disco. I mean, they made disco so huge. So it was a lot of like, how can this disco record label do anything meaningful with punk rock? Well, this record came out. The movie bombed. This has never been released on CD, but it is one of the best collections of the kind of New York and English punk rock scene that was happening in the late 70s, and it is a vital piece of vinyl for anybody that loves old punk rock. And Patti Smith is on it, and one of the New York Dolls, and I mean, look at all these great people that are on it. It's got The Cure, it's got The Pretenders, XTC, Talking Heads, I mean, these people were all sort of underground artists at the time. So there's another piece of this. So first of all, I want to know when you were. So this came out when I was 16 years old, and I listened to this religiously. Double record, all 4 sides, known front to back. Even the crappy Maurice Gibb song that they slapped on here. Any soundtracks of your youth?
Yeah.
Like what?
This is what I call music.
Well, no, that's a compilation. That's a mixtape. But I mean, from like a movie. Like, yeah, you had all those. What, number 34? Which
7. Actually.
89.
What, compilations?
No, like a soundtrack to a movie.
A soundtrack to a movie?
Yeah, they were like so big for so long. And you just don't.
Yeah, the one with like Usher, the dance like honey or honey dances.
Okay. But you don't know what movie.
Like, no.
See, soundtracks are just not what they used to be.
No.
They used to be a big way to hear a lot of music that you liked on one record, and maybe a couple crappy songs thrown in there as well. But yeah.
No, this would be like my LimeWire. What I would make on LimeWire.
Sure. It's like a Spotify
and put
playlist.
it on my first generation iPod.
Yeah. So around here, about the only soundtrack that gets played these days is the Frozen soundtrack.
Yeah.
That's another story. So, but there's also a kind of feminist theme to this, because it's about these 2 girls who run away, and when you run away in the late 70s, early 80s, you go to Times Square, and they want to become part of the punk rock scene. And so it's like this early version of punk rock that was still very gender neutral, that had a lot of spaces for women. Patti Smith, a huge influence. And so, so the first song on this is by Suzi Quatro. This is a song that kind of got played on rock radio from it, called Rock Hard. And I want to play that. And I want you again to sort of tell me what it sounds like to you. This was sort of something you would hear a lot on the radio in 1980, when there wasn't a lot of female voices in rock radio other than like Heart or something. So I'm going to play that, and can I get your reaction to it?
No. Of course. Why am I doing this then? God. Why are we here?
By the way, we should mention before we go any farther, the drinkify.com suggestion for Suzi Quatro is...
Just for Suzi Quatro or for this whole thing?
For several other artists on here I checked, is Jack Daniels. So expect some inappropriate comments at some point. Okay, I'm going to play you Suzi Quatro, Rock Hard, and I want to get your reaction.
All right. Why do you always play good music?
That's what I do. Yeah? This is what Times Square used to look like.
So this is a movie, too?
Yeah, that's what a soundtrack is. What do you think I meant by soundtrack?
Never mind. Okay.
Got it?
Yeah. What?
Does that sound like anything to you? Someone...
No.
No? Doesn't remind you of Joan Jett?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know she was influenced by her.
Yeah. I mean, Suzi Quatro was a huge influence. I mean, there would be no Runaways if there weren't Suzi.
Riot Girl?
Yeah. So, and she was, and so there's another part of Suzi Quatro, because in the 70s there was a huge TV show called Happy Days that was set in the 1950s. And Suzi Quatro had a little role in it as Leather Tuscadero. And then of course she was a girlfriend with the Fonz. You don't know who any of this is. The Fonzie, Arthur Fonzarelli, Henry Winkler.
No.
Yeah. So it was like an early opportunity for girls to rock Suzi Quatro, even if it was on this crappy show called Happy Days. And she had a little sister named Pinky Tuscadero. Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
Okay. So that starts opening the door for a lot of women in rock. Including the Riot Girl movement, right? So there is the story in this movie of this girl who runs away and she forms a rock band. and she's influenced by all the street culture of New York, and so she has a little band, and they have a couple songs that are in the movie, which, you know, nobody knows this now, but it's kind of like early Riot Grrrl punk rock. So I thought I'd play one more song for you.
Okay.
From the singer. So this is the singer here. I think that's her. This is her runaway friend.
It looks like Jennifer Beals.
Yeah, no, she was in a big, you know, another big soundtrack movie called Flashdance. Was that her?
Yeah, that was Flashdance.
Yeah, so we're going to play a song called Damn Dog by Robin Johnson. And that's her.
Okay.
Ready? Okay, here we go.
You're just playing so much wrong.
Yeah.
You change it up.
I'm a damn dog now. Okay. Alright, you get it. Okay, so what'd you think of that?
Okay.
Okay, what? That's okay. I used to play this record in my room in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
I
all the
have
time.
to watch the movie and then I have to listen to the whole damn thing.
Okay, I guess it's hard with the soundtrack because it's all these different songs.
You're just like giving me a snippet of two songs.
It was, yeah, I was trying to give you some girl rock.
I
So-
already know girl
Okay,
rock.
so I would say two things. One,
So fail.
fail. Well, we can't win them all. I don't expect.
What do you guys think?
I'm gonna probably be playing some records that I know you'll hate just to get your reaction.
And
to
I'm
that.
gonna play some records
That's
for
right.
you too.
I know. I want you to play.
See what your
Do you
white
have any
ass
records?
says. Do I have records?
Do you have any records? No, I don't mean like.
I actually do.
You do?
Remember,
Yeah.
I've got some amoeba.
Yeah.
But-
Okay. So here's so I just want to make this plug that soundtracks were a really big deal back in the day. They were a really big deal. They mattered to me and they mattered to a lot of people.
They
and,
matter because
and-
La La Land.
And if you if you find this record in a record bin, you should pick it up because it's really great and it's a snapshot of early great
When
punk
did
rock.
the movie come out?
1980.
1980.
Fall of 1980. But we're going to be going to New York. So tell me what you think of New York. This is your first trip to New York.
Yeah,
Tell me what, you're not going to see this in Times Square.
well, I don't know what that is. I haven't watched it.
Dildos that are shaped like a fist. That's what you're going to see in
I won't
Times
see
Square.
that?
You won't, not in
I
Times
won't.
Square. No. You might see it in Hoboken, but not in Brooklyn or New York.
I'll just see a bunch of avocado toast and...
Yeah. So, so tell me what your...
What do I think of,
Yeah.
like, how...
Because we're going to record an episode in New York.
We're gonna go to a couple record stores and gonna vlog and
Yes.
do a little...
Going to a great jazz
episode
show at the
from
Blue
there.
Note. We're going to see McCoy
We're gonna
Tyner.
go to the Met.
And go to the Met. So, tell me, what do you expect about New York? What the feel
Well,
of the city will be?
A guy was telling me that he kind of freaked out in New York because at the bar yesterday, the
Yeah.
guy was like, I went to New York, got drunk, and I hugged a tree when I saw a tree because you don't see anything green. So that kind of freaks me out to like go
The
to
concrete jungle.
Yeah. That living here, especially where you're surrounded.
You see
That's
green,
creepy.
but it's usually somebody's vomit.
That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what kind of places do you think we'll be hanging out in?
I would hope a lot of bars.
They have those in New York.
Um,
In fact, we'll probably be hanging out at a bar that Frank Sinatra hung out in.
a few
Sinatra?
thrift shops. No?
No, they've all been gentrified right
What?
the fuck out, yeah. It's all, I mean, you know, the Village, the East Village, it's like, you go to Max's Kansas City and there's a Starbucks now, so.
Bookstores.
Bookstores for sure. You know, you got your Barnes and Nobles and you got your Borders and... I'm
Borders?
kidding.
Shut up.
The Strand, we'll go to the Strand.
So what are you? Because, you were just there, so
yeah.
you don't.
Well, I love going to McDougal Street in the Village, having a Cafe Reggio lunch.
Uh-huh.
And there's like a little neighborhood that's Patti Smith's neighborhood that I always think that I'm going to see her in. I'm not a
I
stalker.
think she's touring, so.
And
Bad luck.
yeah,
Bad
and we're gonna rock out, and we're gonna jazz out. We're gonna be jazzing out, which is not like this. It's more like this.
It's like this.
Yeah, that's exactly. I will look forward to that. Remind me not to look at the drummer and to look at that.
So.
Okay.
So tune in for our next episode from New York.
This is a great soundtrack. Believe me.
God.
Don't believe her. Believe me. We'd like you to tune in and subscribe and like.
If I look cranky in this episode, it's because I was not expecting a freaking soundtrack. I want records.
Soundtracks matter.
No, not right now. They don't.
All right.
All right. Peace.
Thanks, everybody.